So when you first started, what was your like sales script experience? Did your mentor teach you to use one, to practice with one as like training wheels? What is your take on sales scripts? Everyone loves sales,
Yeah,
so let's figure this out once and for all.
yeah. So I have a love and hate relationship with them.
Good. I'm talking to the right guy then. Perfect.
They're great, especially if you're first time selling. It allows you to stay on structure, right? It allows you to know what to say next, right? It's kind of like we heard, you heard it so many times, you kind of got it down. I mean, I said it. I practice my. I don't. By the way, which if you listen carefully, I practice my like my pitch, my offer, not the entire script, because I mean, that's just, that's crazy. Um, but that's why I love about it. What I hate about it is that you sound robotic. You can very easily just go off the checklist. Oh, did I ask this question? Oh, yeah, I did. So I can move on to the next one. Although you probably didn't get the answer that you needed to get, right? As we said earlier. So it's very important. It's very important to know how to navigate with a sales script. So yes, I, every time I get a sales script, um, I read it multiple times, and I read it first not to memorize it, not to understand it. So first is to memorize, not understand. Now that's how my brain works. That's why I go that way. So I probably memorize in 3, 5 times after I read it out loud. Then after that, I reread it to very slowly to understand it, to see why am I saying this right here at this moment? How am I supposed to say this right here in this moment?
Yeah.
Right. So then I go back and do that multiple times to get a full understanding. And that's actually pretty much what I do on a day-to-day basis with sales with systems. Besides putting the systems together, but we also put the sales process and the sales elements in place. And part of it, yes, it is scripts. So we do use scripts. We do give scripts, to our clients, and we really kind of build it for them. But we go through this exercise where it's like, hey, memorize the script so you know what to say and when to say it. But then what's most important is understanding it, right? And that's the half that most people forget, which is why I hate it. I know hate's a strong word, puts a lot of bad vibes out there, but it's
Yeah,
true,
I
right?
get it. I get it.
Because if you memorize it, you'll close that 10%. Like, out of 20 people, out of 10 people you talk to, you close that 10%. But once you understand it, that's when you break through and you start closing that 15, 20, 25, 30, 40%, those crazy numbers that you see out there, right? Because let's be honest, in a conversation, right, which what sales is really supposed to be like, that's why it's called a sales call, right? It's a
Right.
two-way street,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to ask the same questions in the same order of the times. You're also not always going to go, in the same talk about the same topic the same way every single time. It's going to be a slight variations to it. The foundation is not going to change. Yeah, like the core thing, the core solution in itself is not going to change. But how you get there, that path, that journey in itself, that will change,
Right.
right? So if you don't have a full understanding of your sales script, right, you won't be able to do that successfully.
Yeah, dude, that's so true. That's so true. I think again, like it is, like I said a bit earlier, it's a mental game for sure. Like, and it's not just like building that connection and rapport with the prospect, with the lead, right? But it's also understanding like why you're saying what you're saying. So I think that's one thing that most people do not, like most like courses, most programs, they don't focus on that. They just say, here's a sales script, follow it to its T. It works. We've tested it. It works. Just go out and do it. It's going to work. Great. At your 10% closing rate, that's fantastic. Good for you. And I feel like that's even high. That's a high closing rate. I feel like it's more like 1 in 20 for more like as a average closing rate. And even then that might be still too high. I don't know. But because sales is tough, like, it's, and you're making it sound a lot easier than it's supposed to be, but like you've been doing this for a while. How many sales calls do you think that you've had? If you had to estimate, like just a rough number.
That's tough. Few thousand at this point.
Dang,
Yeah,
dang,
so
2,000.
it's
Okay.
in my career. in my career sales, I'm probably around like 8 figures. So selling everything from, product base, which again, the average order there was around $600, $300 to, high ticket, coaching programs and of course my own stuff. But yeah, like the 8 figure range. So yeah, a
A
few
lot of
thousand.
a lot of calls. So if you had to say a few thousand of those, just obviously you might not have these numbers, and we'll get into KPIs and measuring and all that in just a minute too. But how many of those do you think said no, like percentage wise? What if you had to guess percentages? How many of those
Yeah,
said
if
no,
you
how many say yes?
yeah, if we're including my rookie numbers,
All of it, all of it.
we're
Yeah.
we're probably sitting, I want to say 75 to 70% around there said no to me. So
See,
it's
and
a lot of no's.
that's crazy to me too, that like that 30%, that 35%, or 25 to 30% is responsible for right around 8 figures of sales, right? That's crazy. Like, you don't need to have this massive like closing rate, like in order to make a good amount of money. Now, in the handful of years that you've been doing sales, like shit, that's a good amount of money. So people get
Yeah.
hung up on the fact like, man, I've taken 20 calls, I followed the script, like nothing's working. Great. Talk to Darren, who's done like thousands of calls that has lost 75% of his calls, but closed 25% and made 8 figures. What's your problem? Like, you know what I mean? So sometimes you do have to have that conversation with yourself, saying like, I've only done 20 calls, I've only done 30 calls. Like, great, go do 60 more and see if you can make that happen, but sales scripts, man, one of the things that I always tell everybody to do too, and this is like my take on it. I don't do anywhere near the amount of sales that you do, as far as like taking the sales calls, right? Or even 8 figures. God, like, you know what I mean? So like props to you, man, for killing it in this space. But I've always told people to, like, if you get a script, great, like read it over, like practice it, but highlight the questions in it, and don't read the rapport building sentences like the weather and do you have any pets and blah blah blah, right? All that stuff, like you can make that up. That doesn't matter. That's all just fluff. That's filler, right? So
Yeah.
I'm taking like bullet points, like what's the most important pieces, so that because conversations, I'm sure you can agree that they get really side railed. Um, like you're in this third bullet point, approaching the fourth one, and they start talking about their kids, and then like you're like, wait, where do we leave off? Like I'm following the script. Where do we leave off? But I feel like the bullet points help people really stay in line, and it takes
Yep.
out robotic crap that like people hear. I've actually reviewed a sales call, man. You're gonna probably laugh about this, or maybe you could even like vibe with this on a previous call you've been on. I was doing a call review, and they were on a Zoom call, and they were totally doing this. Great. So you were telling me that you have a lead problem, and you want to get more leads. Is that right? And I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. So how do you navigate a script on a video call?
Yeah. So one, don't do it unless you have it memorized. But if you have to, so I when I share my screen on Zoom, I actually I don't share my entire screen. Or for example, I have a Mac, so it says desktop,
Yeah.
right? I just share what they need to see. So I'll have like my
Uh,
Google, like say my Google Slides that I'm gonna be showing them. Like I'll have that open on its own window, and I'll
yeah.
share that. What what that allows you to do is, if you need to, like absolutely need to use the script, you can open up a new window, all right, like not tab, new window, and then you can have that popped up as you're going through your, the slide deck or whatever it may be that you're showing them. And they won't even know that you have that thing open in your background.
Yeah.
It
Put
takes a
it
lot of finessing.
in the same tab,
um,
the next tab over. It's like, oh, sales, $1 million sales script. It's like, oh, great, this person's following a script. Yeah.
right.
Takes
But, they won't, because it takes some finessing, because, now you're navigating, different, windows, right? And like say you gotta, okay, cool, let me go back to my slide deck. Let me change slide. Oh, wait, where was I on my script? Right. So you still need to be very familiar with the script. I'll be honest with you. At the end of the day, what's probably best, if that's what you need to do in that situation, is just to not do it at all. Just go with what you remember because you should have practiced your script. It's your offer, right? That's gonna be better than you trying to read it off because by the way, they'll still notice a little bit that you're kind of reading a script or something, right? Because they'll see you do kind of like this,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
right. Although they can't see what's happening in your screen, they can probably figure it out, right? I've been there, by the way. Like when I first started again selling the very first time, I brought, it was in person again, direct sales and home presentations. I had a blue book. I wish I can show you, but it was kind of like this. What I would do is actually I would take my script and hide it behind the book, and I held the book up, so they would look at the book and the script was behind me. And I did that like 5 times, and I was like, I'm not doing this ever again. Like this
Yeah.
looks bad.
That's clever though, dude. That's really clever. I wouldn't have thought about that. It's like the cheat sheet notes under your sleeve. Like, oh, all right, cool. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's funny.
yeah,
Smart.
and ultimately, like if you need a cheat sheet, that's what I recommend. Like, I used to have it. I make one for all my clients. I do make a cheat sheet of their um, scripts that they can print out, right? Which has like the 3 to 5 main bullet points, right here, and it has spaces, so they're answering like the questions that around that bullet point that they should be asking.
Right.
Because again, I don't want them to live off the script. Like that's not the point of the script. Not even the best actors, they always improvise, right? That's why they're the best actors,
That's
right? They
true.
add their personality to it. Same goes true with sales. The best salespeople, they understand the script. They use it as almost like their backbone, but
Right.
it's not the muscle, right, of the back. Like
Right.
they build around it.
Man, that's the probably the perfect way of putting it. I've never heard it like that. Makes a lot of sense. Actors, you don't see them up there reading word for word. Maybe in like amateur plays or whatever, but yeah, improvisation is super important. That's a really good point, man. I didn't even think about that. This is taking my sales game to a whole new level too, man. So thank you. Shoot.